kicking off today, I want to kind of just start with a frame for this conversation. So how many of you came to our goal setting retreat in November of last year? Okay, good chunk of you. So if you did not, I highly encourage it this year. We do this every year, and we really help you to set goals in the 7 different areas of life. And one of the beliefs is that all of your areas of life, your health, your personal goals, your relationship goals, all of these things are interconnected, okay, to your business. And so ultimately what we want to look at is what are the different areas of life that you should focus on and really improve to get better results in your business. And one of those areas is your mental health, but also your physical health, right? So how do we focus on improving overall? And so I have a special guest here with us today. And this is a fun introduction, a little bit different than the ones that we've had in the past. This is actually a long-term friend. We've been friends for 17 years, went to high school together, and been on some fun trips. And I really want to just help you guys get some perspective around what it looks like to master your health at the highest level. And ultimately, the better you do from keep taking care of your health, the better you're going to show up in business mentally, but also be able to have enough energy to do what you do at a high level. So today's guest went from a cheerleader and a dancer to a trained assassin. And she's a professional MMA fighter with over a decade in the sport, a semifinalist on the TV show The Ultimate Fighter, and now competes in the PFL, which is the Professional Fighters League. Beyond the cage, she's a published author, a mental health advocate, fitness coach, and social media powerhouse with over 500,000 followers between Instagram and TikTok. Her story is one of reinvention, resilience, and consistency. And I would like for you all to please welcome Kaytlin Katniss Neal.
I come up here now?
Yep.
Okay.
So while she's getting set up, we had almost 10 years ago, we decided to do this trip. My wife, Julie, and a good friend, another friend from high school, we decided to go to Thailand, Dubai, and Philippines all at once. And we also decided that it would be smart. We were young and not thinking about this, but that we'd fly to 2 different locations within each country. And so it ended up being close to 60 hours of flight time. If any of you have been on flights, it's not very fun to be stuck. And so we ended up being out there for a little over 3 weeks, going through these different countries, and had a fun experience. And it's been cool. What I'll say to just start off is it's been amazing seeing Kaytlin's journey since high school. And she's been through many different evolutions, but ultimately it's been cool to see her in her professional career dominate in so many different areas. She's also the founder of Wella, which is a health supplement company, and has done amazing things. So just want to jump in, Kaytlin, and just start off with taking it back a little bit. Let's just go back, 15 years ago. Where did your fighting career actually start?
Yeah, so I was a cheerleader all growing up. I did dance, gymnastics, and then cheerleading, and I was cheer captain. And I went and tried out for the cheer team in college, and I didn't make it. And I was like, what? They didn't want me? Are you kidding me? And so that kind of threw my whole world for like a spin. And then I was kind of lost for like a year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that kept me active, but I wasn't quite sure what I could do. So I was thinking like CrossFit or bodybuilding. Then some of my friends took me to some MMA fights, and there was one female fight on the card, and I'm like, that is so cool. I'm going to do that. So then I found a gym, started training, and I've been doing it for 13 years now.
Awesome. Now, how long from that timeline when you went and saw that fight until you actually started fighting yourself?
So it's probably 2 years from me watching the fight. So I started training a year after watching that fight. And then I wasn't able to take my first fight until after a year of training. So probably 2 years after watching the fight, then I was actually able to fight.
Yeah. And the first one was it a tournament? Is that right?
Yeah. So when I started training, I signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament after a month of training. And I had no idea what I was doing. I knew one submission. And so I was like, yeah, I can compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And then I went in and won the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm decent at this. I have no idea how that happened. So I won that jiu-jitsu tournament, and then I think my coaches just thought I was awful or something because they wouldn't let me fight. And so I took a Muay Thai fight behind their back, and I just had a side coach kind of like coach me for that fight. And then I ended up winning that fight. And then they're like, okay, well, if she won the jiu-jitsu tournament, she won that Muay Thai fight, maybe she actually can fight. And so then they let me put it all together, and I took my first amateur MMA fight.
That's awesome. So just walk me through that, because I think in business as well, I think there's a lot of overlaps. And so I'm going to just kind of point out some of the cross context here as we go through this conversation. So I think it's so often where we have this fear of starting something. And some of you know that you might need to do a change up in your business, whether it's starting on social media and getting more active there, or doing a different lead generation approach, or whatever it might be. And we always have this kind of fear, right? Or this roadblock stopping us from taking action. So if you can think back to that timeline, like what caused you to say, I'm going to actually go and like perform in this, this tournament and go and actually compete?
So one of my teammates was going to do the tournament also. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of better than her when we train. And like, if she can do it, I can do it. So why can't I do it? And so if she had that full belief in herself, then I'm like, why can't I believe in myself? So that's kind of what I did. And that has happened to me throughout multiple times in my MMA career. I watched somebody else do it and I'm like, there's nothing uniquely special about that person, but they are out there doing it. And so why can't I do it? And so that was kind of sparks me, is just seeing other people who I think are very normal people coming from a normal background, accomplishing really cool things and being like, okay, I can do that too.
Yeah. And just walk us through over, this timeline, 13-ish years. I'm sure you've ran into your fair share of different injuries. And the reality is that every great achievement has a price, or has a cost we have to pay. And in business, it's a little bit different, but in your industry, obviously, it's physical, right? So you have injuries, surgeries, setbacks. So what injuries have you dealt with? And then how did you mentally push through those dark parts that most never see through?
Yeah, so I'm up to 4 knee surgeries by now, and I did break my hand, so I have a nice scar there. But yeah, I think the biggest thing with injuries is just focusing on what you can do rather than what you can't do. And that translates into business really well. It's like focus on the things that you can control and not all the things that you can't control. Keep showing up, treat training, or treat physical therapy like training. And so that way you're still showing up, doing what you can, getting stronger, and working your way back up to the top. And then another thing is kind of look at other people who have been through similar scenarios or situations as you. So I looked up a lot of professional athletes, like basketball players and soccer players, who have torn their ACL and then came back to compete at a high level. And I'm like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And I want to be an example for other people to be able to do that too. So that's kind of what I...
Yeah. So this isn't a question you have to answer, but it's just a thought process. Why do we do these interviews every roughly 4 to 6 weeks? The purpose of this is Gary talks about something called mental models, right? Or these frameworks where, if you read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, he documents models, meaning that they are playbooks or strategies people deploy where if anybody else deploys it, they get a similar result. And whenever I'm doing these interviews, I'm a student in this scenario as well, learning. And one of the things that I always notice is the mental beliefs that people have. And what Kaytlin's pointed out multiple times is that if somebody else can do it, so can I, number one. But then also, how can I study the greats? How can I study people who have been there? My thought first goes to Kobe Bryant. Did anybody see that game when he tore his Achilles? Has anybody seen the highlights of that? So essentially, Kobe Bryant tears his Achilles, and he still continues to take his free throw shot in the immense pain that he's going through, and then hobbles off the court. He won't let anybody help him off. He has this like mental grit coming off the court. And I watched this interview where somebody had essentially asked him, what was going through your mind? And he had this split moment where he's like, maybe this is the end of my career. Maybe this is actually, I'm done. And he said, I had to snap back into it and say, I'm going to fight my way back from this. And so going to your experience, because you have had, I think, 2 different ACL tears.
Yeah.
And so just walk us through that second time. You're like, oh my gosh, this is happening again on the other knee. And I know the immense amount of pain that it goes through to rehabilitate and get back to a fighting stage. But what helped you through that?
Yeah, so the second I tore my ACL in the opposite knee, I kind of was just like, great, here we go again. But it wasn't as devastating as the first time, because the first time I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the recovery was like. I didn't know if I could compete again. I didn't know if I was going to be able to fight again. And so the second time, I'm like, okay, well, I've already been through this. I know all the work that needs to go into this. I know what to do. And I know that I can come back from this since I've done it once before. So yeah, I think it's just kind of having a path and sticking to it, and then trying to find people who can help you with that.
Mm. So what does that look like? Are you meaning different coaches? Did you have people who helped you with being able to just bounce back, physically?
Yeah, so I think coaches, teammates, and then physical therapists are the main things. And then also like your journal is your best friend, so you can journal all your feelings, making sure that you are processing your thoughts in a logical way rather than in an emotional way, and be like, because like obviously I did want to quit. Like there was times where I'm like, I don't want to put in all that work again. I know how hard it is to come back, and I think if you just like shove those feelings to the side and be like, no, that would be a totally logical thing for me to do, is quit fighting right now. But fighting brings me so much joy. It gives me a lot of opportunities. I get to meet tons of cool people. I genuinely enjoy having a goal and working towards it. So all of that hard work is worth putting into so I can fight again. So it's kind of just reminding yourself why you're doing the thing that you're doing, and it makes all of the hard work and effort that you have to put into it worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think especially in business, that's the most important thing. Is there's so many different curveballs or setbacks that pop up throughout life, whether it be health challenges or deals falling through or just the craziness that's happening in the market. And so a consistent focus is, how do I refocus my energy on what's important to me? Like what's my driving force that's causing me to do what I do?
Yeah, and I think a big thing is shutting out the outside noise. So when your business is going well, obviously people are going to be cheering for you. When your fight career is going well, you're winning fights, people are going to cheer for you. So I was on a winning streak, and then I tore my ACL, and people are like, "Oh, are you going to quit? Are you going to quit? Are you going to quit?" And it's like people in my life that I never thought would ask me if I was going to quit, were asking me that, and I'm like, no, why would you think that of me? Of like everything I've been through, you think I'm just gonna quit right now? I'm like, no, what? But then it kind of started putting like doubts in my mind. And so if you can start shutting those out and really focus on your main goal and your main purpose, that really helps, because when business is going well, it's really easy for people to cheer for you. But the second something hard pops up in your business, a lot of people will kind of like question you, or try to put little seeds of doubt in your mind. And if you can kind of get those shut out and really focus on your main goal and push through those times, I think a lot of times in my fight career, when I've pushed through those times, there's been something way more rewarding that I never thought could happen in my fight career, that has happened. Like at the first time I had 2 knee surgeries, I did get the opportunity to go on The Ultimate Fighter right after those, which was a reality TV show where you fight each other. And that was huge for my career. And I never would have been able to do that if I would have just quit.
Yeah. Yeah. Which takes me to this idea of resilience. And I'm curious, if you were to just say resilience, that one kind of perspective, is that a muscle? Is it a decision? Is it something that people are born with? Where does resilience come from?
I think resilience is all three. So I was born super stubborn. And so when someone tells me I'm not going to do something, I'm like, well, I'm for sure going to go do that thing now. Second thing, it is a muscle. It's not easy to keep showing up after every single time. And there's points where it's like, okay, I'm on my 4th knee surgery. I'm 33. And I'm like, is this worth it for me right now? I'm like, obviously, yeah, it's worth it for me. So I'm going to keep showing up. And then what was the third thing?
Is it a muscle? Is it something that's just a decision? Like it's a decision point that you're having to make on
Yeah.
a consistent basis?
And so it is a muscle. You have to keep pushing through the hard times and keep showing up. And then each time you do that, you get stronger. And I feel like there's a greater reward at the end of the tunnel each time you do push through those hard times.
Mm. Yeah, and we've talked about this, I think, a few weeks ago, which is this increased resistance that you end up building. Like it's almost when you're stretching and you guys touch your toes, you get that burn in the back side of your leg. And the more you do that, the more limber, flexible you become, but it also is less painful. And so I think that muscle kind of perspective is resilience is one of those things where if you keep making tough decisions, we have to do that on a daily basis, it actually becomes easier and you build up that momentum or that muscle to be able to make harder decisions in the future. Maybe take us back to that. I think that ties in as well, like these limiting beliefs, because you've mentioned that, where all of us have these. I remember in my early door-to-door sales career, where I'd achieved really great things in the door-to-door space. And I was probably 6 years in, and I'd still have these mental things pop up in my mind, which is like every summer, what if I go out there and I can't sell anymore? Like, what if I lose that skill set that I've developed, right? And you probably have faced this in different ways where you have the question in real estate, your income starts from zero every single year, right? You're not guaranteed anything. And so we have to go through this kind of mental kind of process of having a habit or routine in place to get our mental state up to where we can perform at a high level. So what's maybe just some of the biggest mindset shifts or changes that have showed up for you from when you first started, fighting to now as you've evolved? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is believing in myself. So throughout my career, I'll go to a fight and I'll be I will forget all of my fighting skills. I'm like, I've never fought before. What am I doing? Why am I like, I'm walking to a cage right now. What is happening? And then I have to remind myself, oh, I've done this so many times before. I'm the top female in the state. I have fought on the Ultimate Fighter. And I have to remind myself of all those accomplishments and be like, okay, I've done all these things in the past. I can definitely tackle this fight that comes up ahead. So it's kind of just reminding yourself, okay, I've done it in the past. I can do it again. And then also realizing that those self-doubts are normal. Like everybody gets them. So I know the girl standing across from me in the cage is also thinking the same thing. She was probably like, holy crap, I'm fighting Kaytlin, who was on the Ultimate Fighter, where she hasn't even had that experience yet. So if she realized how much I was doubting myself, she would probably be like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that she thought those things too. So everybody has those doubts. But if you kind of just try to switch your mindset and recognize that you're having those doubts in the first place, it will really help you. So turn negative thought into a more neutral thought. So let's say if you're like tired in a fight or something like that, or if you're really tired in an interview, or if you're tired on a sales call, be like, I'm tired, that's okay. I'm going to keep pushing through and work through the sell. Or I'm tired, that's okay. I'm just going to turn her back and put her on the cage. So if you just can turn a super negative thought into a more neutral one, I think that can help a lot in the long run.
Yeah, it's not about being, an extreme optimist, but it's just being about a realist, right? Yeah. It's like, what's the situation that I'm in? How do I just take that up to one more level into a better place? Andrew, we go to the next slide. And is Clay Winder in the house? So Clay, we're going to do a reenactment. If you'll come up to the front, we just want to show everybody in this room what this kick looks like real time. I'm kidding. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the Ultimate Fighter. How many of you have seen a clip or just are familiar with the show at all? Okay. So maybe just tell us what the setting is and what the show's about.
All right. So you guys are probably more familiar with The Bachelor. So there's a lot of people stuck in a house fighting each other for a guy. So instead of fighting each other for a guy, we're actually just fighting each other physically. So that's kind of what the Ultimate Fighter is. You're stuck in a house. You have no outside connection. You have no phone, no TV, no like anything. You just can focus on fighting. You have all your food there for you. You have all your training laid out for you. And all you have to focus it on is fighting someone. So you're completely out of your comfort zone, but you're all zoned in on fighting, which was such a crazy experience.
Yeah. How long is that time period?
So we were in quarantine a week before the show.
This happened during...
It was like it was a year after COVID. Okay. Yeah. So we were in quarantine for medicals week. So we had to get our medicals done to make sure that we could go fight on the show. And then we were in the house for 5 weeks total. Okay.
So 5
weeks without a phone.
How many of you would survive that? Right. I see some of you having panic attacks right now.
Well, that was the thing. I was sitting in the hotel room by myself and they took away our phone and I started pacing back and forth and I'm like, why am I pacing back and forth right now? Like, what am I looking for? And then I realized, I'm looking for my phone and I didn't even realize it. And then by the end of the 5 weeks, I didn't even want my phone back. I was like, no. I don't want all the notifications. I don't want all the messages. I don't want anything. I'm like, I'd rather just like not have it anymore.
So you feel like you actually found freedom in being able to just stay focused on one thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was awesome not having all of that distraction and mess while you're preparing for fights.
Yeah. And then just on the show, walk us through the setting. So obviously they pair you against other fighters, and the ultimate goal is to win a contract with the UFC, right? And so just like and one of the cool things as well is you were coached by one of the greats during that timeline. Amanda Nunes, for those of you who are familiar with the UFC, multi-world champion in different weight classes. Has beat great individuals like Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg as well. But maybe just walk us through before we get into the Amanda Nunes section is just like talk to us about the things that you learned by being in an environment where you're focused on one thing for 5 weeks straight. What did that allow for you to do?
That allowed for me to obviously shut out outside noise. So I didn't have to focus on what all of my family was doing, if I was missing out on family events or if I was missing out on some sort of holiday. I think it was a Super Bowl while I was in there, so I missed the Super Bowl. I didn't have any sort of outside noise or distraction. I just had ultimate like hyper focus on fighting, and that never happens. Like normally when you sign up for a fight camp, everything in your life goes wrong. And so you have to really put out a lot of fires while you're trying to focus on training for this fight and getting ready for this big moment. So it was really nice being able to kind of like shut all that out.
Yeah. And I just want everybody in this room to realize there's a great book, The One Thing, right, which is a great book by Gary, and it is How Do You Stay Hyper-Focused on One Thing at a Time? And in our industry, it is not a 5-week kind of timeline. It's more of like, how can you stay hyper-focused for a day, right, for 8 hours or for 3 hours or for 60 minutes, right? Saying, what's the one thing that I need to focus on that's going to help me get the most momentum? And I think there's a lot of freedom that comes from you creating that habit. I think it's just a simple habit or routine where you can say, this is the one thing that matters right now. There's a lot of noise where you just heard a ping. There's consistently people pinging for our attention and our time. And I think the greatest skill set that you can develop in this time is focus. How can you remain maniacally focused on one thing, especially when it comes to your goals? And that actually allows you to do more of what's important to you, spending time with family or doing any of those things that are calling for your attention. And so that's the one thing I really want to highlight is just how do you stay exceptionally focused on one thing and build kind of a bunker. You guys are put in this pressure cooker, so to speak, in this house, and there's only one thing that matters, right? So shifting with that, what was the experience like learning from Amanda Nunes? She was in your corner, again, held 2 titles and beat phenomenal legends in that space. So what did you notice about how she carries herself as a champion, and how did that impact you?
So Amanda Nunes, it was really cool getting to know her. So on TV, I didn't really connect with her as a fighter, and I didn't know her before the show, and so I was kind of like skeptical about having her as my coach. I was like, okay, whatever. And then getting to know her as a human, I was like, she is so cool. She's so personable. She's so funny, and it was awesome to see a person who comes off really like tough girl. She has like this tough girl persona, kind of like mean, edgy, and like it was just something that I didn't really relate to. But seeing the more human side of her, I was like, this is so cool. She's actually like so funny and so fun to be around. And so it was really cool being able to watch her kind of flip between the 2 personas and realize that she's actually a real human that cares and has a personality. And then also she can become this basically like a monster in the cage. So it was really cool to see both sides of her.
Yeah, which I think is also important in life of just having like an on and off switch, right?
Yeah.
Is this idea of like, how do you make sure that when you're in business mode, you're turned on, and then when you're family mode, you're turned off, right?
Totally.
And you're saying, I can just focus on this. I don't have to have all these other distractions or things. I can just actually be a human, right?
Yeah.
So was there anything else that particularly stood out about just how she carries herself, or just the championship mindset in general?
I think she had a lot of confidence in herself. So she actually lost to Juliana Pena, who was the opposite team's coach. And it was just kind of like a weird fluke fight where she lost. But she was going to fight Juliana Pena again after the show. And she had full confidence that she was going to beat her. There was no doubt in her mind that she was going to beat Juliana, even though she already had lost to her. And so I love seeing that all of her team behind her, all of her coaches, her wife, all had no doubt that she was going to beat Juliana the next time she fought her. And so I think that was so cool to see. Like, she literally lost to this girl, and now she's going to fight her again, and she has no doubt in her mind that she's going to beat her. So it's cool to just see her like go through a little bit of a loss, but not let that shake her confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an important factor as well in business is like having our own internal belief system before you go into a listing appointment or a buyer consultation of like, I'm going to win this client, right? I'm going to earn their business. And we have to have the ability to have extreme confidence, which I think, I don't know if you learned anything about her consistent routine, and I know you have one as well, but oftentimes your level of confidence comes down to what your morning routine, your evening routines look like. How are you getting yourself in mental shape and making sure that you have something that helps you to act from a place of peak performance? And that's where I actually want to kind of shift gears a little bit into the health conversation, because you're also a certified personal trainer, right? And when did that start?
I started shadowing personal trainers when I was 15 years old. So I always wanted to be a personal trainer. I thought personal trainers were like the coolest people ever. I grew up watching my mom do those 80s aerobic videos or VHSs. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And then obviously times evolved and I'm like, okay, I'll be an online personal trainer. That'll be
Was it
pretty
Simmons
cool.
that had the curly hair and the spandex? Was that his name? Richard Simmons?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was my whole goal to always be a personal trainer because I thought they were the coolest people ever.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of talk about that because I do believe that in order to really achieve at a high level as an entrepreneur, you have to have extreme stamina or energy, right? It all comes down to how you can really handle yourself from a health perspective. And that has a lot of different things that go into it, right? From dieting and eating healthy to exercising on a consistent basis. And the reality too is you don't have to raise your hands and call yourself out, but I'll call myself out is that sometimes like life gets so busy. And so like sometimes I'm like, man, do I have time to work out? Like, do I have time to put energy into this area of my life? And so for entrepreneurs who are juggling multiple roles, what is your minimum effective protocol for staying in shape?
So bare minimum, we're talking bare minimum here. Walk, go for a walk. Sleep, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and then also eat more protein. That's bare minimum. If you can do those three things consistently, you are going to see like tons of results, tons of progress, and you're just going to feel so much better. So many entrepreneurs will kind of cut out sleep and wear it as a badge of honor. They're like, oh, I didn't get very much sleep last night. I've been so busy. Where I look at it as a badge of kind of idiocracy. Like, I don't know. I feel like most people perform way better when they are getting way more sleep. So if you can really prioritize your sleep, you're going to show up better. Your hormones are going to be regulated. You're just going to feel better and you're going to be more energized throughout your work. If you can move throughout the day, hit a step goal, whether it's 7,000 or 10,000 steps, if you can hit that, you're going to be getting more blood flow. You're going to be burning more calories. You're going to be able to manage your weight a little bit better. And then also hitting your protein goal. Most people just don't get enough protein, and that's going to help you so much with hormone regulation. Protein plays a vital role in literally every single cell in your body. And so if you can just hit those three things, you'll have a very good baseline of health. And those should be very like simple to hit. If we're going slightly above bare minimum, then I would add in like 2 to 3 weight training sessions just so you can maintain muscle strength, and then obviously like help you as you age to avoid any injuries and stuff like that. And then also drinking water. Drinking water should take literally like no extra time out of your day. So if you can just prioritize drinking water, carry around your hydro jug over there we go. Then you'll also cover a lot of like baselines of health. So if you can focus on those 5 things, that will really help you.
Yeah. So it's not a 3-hour training every day that you have to do.
No, not unless you're competing for something or if you need like a specific, I don't know, routine for a goal that you want to achieve. There's no reason why you would need something super crazy or fancy to get you there.
And it's funny because when you actually do the math on this, let's say it's 30 minutes a day, right? And when you train for fights, you're training 6 days a week, right?
Yeah.
So, but for most of us, 4 to 5 days, 6 days a week, if you're just doing 30 minutes a day, that actually equates to roughly 2% of your allotted time per week. Okay. So 98% of your time you can do sleeping and all these other things, working, hanging out with family. 2% can be allocated towards just improving your health, right? Through 30 minutes a day of walking, weightlifting. And so that's why my one encouragement is to very simply just have a minimum viable protocol where it's like, hey, if this week is busy, if nothing else, These are the 3 or 4 things I'm going to get in. And if I am in a normal week, how do I make sure that I'm doing a little bit more to just maintain my sharpness and that mental edge? So, which actually just maybe walk us through too, to take a step back for a second. What does your training regimen look like just normally, but then also leading up to a fight?
So basically every single day I'll get in some form of movement where if it's an active rest day, I'll just go for a walk. But typically when I'm not in a fight camp, I'll work out for 45 to 90 minutes a day. And then I'll kind of, I guess, work in either specific training, whether it's like kickboxing, jujitsu, wrestling, or I will add in weight training and stuff like that. When I am in a fight camp, things obviously pick up a lot more. So I'll be training anywhere from like 1 to 6 hours a day, but that sounds like a lot, but it's my full-time job and that's kind of like what I do. And also it's not a hard 6 hours. It's like you're drilling, you're learning stuff, you're going over strategies and things like that. And then you'll go live or do like live scenarios here and there, which is a little bit more on the difficult side of the activity level.
So, when you actually have a fight, how long do those fights last?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. So, in that 15 minutes, you're training 1 to 6 hours a day for multiple weeks leading up to a fight. Okay. And I'm curious, how many of you train that hard for a listing appointment or a buyer consultation, right? So just think through, and you can look at any athletes that perform at a high level. You even look at NFL, the NFL, where they might play for roughly 2 hours, or 60 minutes to 2 hours on a Sunday. That's it. But they spend 5 to 6 days a week training for that 1 hour of gameplay. And so just that's the perspective to have as a champion, is asking yourself, how consistently am I practicing my craft to really perform at the highest level? And I think that's just a good habit to build, is really looking at how can I consistently improve in practice. Now, if we are looking at going back to this health idea, there's this challenge I think that people run into when there's not a deadline. So let's say that we don't have a specific timeline of when a goal has to be accomplished or achieved, and we kind of get complacent in that approach, right? So when there's no fight booked and there's no external deadline, how do you actually stay sharp and disciplined when there's no fight coming up?
Yeah, so I think there has to be a balance. So I can't stay in fight camp long term or a fight camp mindset long term, because I will burn myself out. And so when you're not in a fight camp, that's when you still want to focus on hitting like the baseline levels of health, what I talked about earlier, moving around, hitting like a step goal, hitting your water goal, getting in protein, making sure that you're getting in enough sleep. So you want to be able to maintain that kind of like baseline. But you do want to add in more fun things like going out to eat pizza, ice cream, burgers, and stuff that you wouldn't normally enjoy in a fight camp, because you do have to make weight and you have to focus on how you feel during practices. And obviously those things don't really help you feel super great when you are training. So when I'm not in a fight camp, I do like to maintain a baseline level of health, but I do like to add in more fun things. My weight might go up a little bit, which is totally fine. But I'm able to enjoy life a little bit more, sit back and enjoy my family and friends also. So there is definitely that balance that you have to have.
Yeah. And sometimes too, I know for me at least, like accountability is a big factor, right? And ensuring that I have external support of somebody who's holding me accountable. So a coach, obviously in business, I have a coach. And one of the goals this year, I know Johnny has done great with this, but having a health coach and having somebody who's saying, hey, here's the focus, right, for the next couple weeks or the next month, that can help move your health in the right direction. And so some of you might feel like you're at a point where you might need some external accountability to help you stay consistent and make sure that you have that focus, even if you're not saying, oh, I'm going to run a marathon in September, and that's the thing that I'm working towards. If you're just saying, I want to just be in peak health, right? I want to have optimal health so I can show up for my family, for my business, then it might be a good idea to have a coach in that area of life. I do want to change gears again. I know we're going through three different kind of
Can I touch on
pillars.
that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
So even Amanda Nunes, the best athlete, female athlete of all time, has a coach, right? And so if she has a coach, I think it's important for all of you guys to have a coach. I have a coach, whether or not I'm in a fight camp. I have a coach for my strength and conditioning. I have a coach for my MMA and stuff like that. So I do have people holding me accountable, and it makes me work so much harder. It gives me goals to strive for, even if it's not specifically towards a specific fight. There are definitely things that outside, I guess, coaches and people and having eyes on you can really help you with. So I would highly recommend getting an accountability partner of some sort, whether it is a coach or someone who's like a teammate that will really help hold you accountable to staying on top of your goals and making sure that you are making progress. Because I do know a lot of fighters who will sign up for a fight, then they don't train for 6 months until they sign up for the next fight, and then they have to start from basically square one, and then train for that fight, and it's so much harder on them. Whereas if they were to just maintain a good baseline level of health, it wouldn't be that drastic of a change going into a fight camp versus their normal life.
Yeah. And if you were to maybe just pinpoint, because we talk about this at the retreat, where when you set goals in all 7 different areas of life, you want to find a mentor or a coach who is kind of, the idea is where you would like to be, right? You don't want to get advice from maybe your family member who is great with relationships, but they're terrible with health. You would like to take the relationship advice, but discard their health advice, right? If that's not the area that they're great at. And so just think through, do you have a mentor or somebody that you can look towards in the health category of life? And if not, it might be a good idea to find somebody in that area. As we jump into, I want to kind of go into this last section is we talk about just your journey. 10 years ago, Kaytlin hired me as her social media manager, and it didn't last very long. Okay. I thought I was going to really focus on building a social media following. This is when I was starting my door-to-door career. And then it didn't last very long. And so she hired one that was better, obviously, which was herself. But you've built a massive following over the last 10 years. And now you have, if you actually go to the next slide, I think roughly 200,000 followers on, and actually, we'll come back to this. So go one more. Roughly 200,000 followers on Instagram, and then another 240,000 on TikTok. So
1 million on Facebook. So.
And 1 million on Facebook.
Yeah.
All right. So just kind of walk us through that. What's something that's a misunderstood part of growing a brand on social media? A lot of real estate agents in this space, a lot of their business comes from sphere of influence, people that know, like, and trust them. And it's important to build this consistent reminder that I am in the real estate industry using social media. So just talk to us about what maybe a misunderstood piece of growing a brand on social media looks like.
Yeah, so just a couple tips with that. Just from an outsider perspective, I know nothing about real estate. So if I looked at a realtor and I had no idea who any realtors were, and one had a bigger following than the other, I would assume that the bigger following was more successful. Whether or not that's true, that's kind of just an outsider perspective. So you do want to realize that, like, your branding, your storytelling, all that stuff does kind of play a role in how you will get clients. What I would recommend doing is having 4 different pillars that you fall through with your posts. So you want to inspire people, you want to educate people, you want to entertain people, and you want to pitch. So you want to make sure that you are covering those 4 pillars. And if you can create posts ahead of time, going over those 4 pillars each week, and just have 4 posts each week and be really consistent with those, you're going to see lots of growth and lots of people following you, because if they're getting entertained by you, if they're getting inspired by you, if they're getting educated by you, then of course when you pitch, they're going to want to buy from you. And so that is a huge thing. And then also a big learning curve for me was just being myself, even though it was a little bit more edgy or maybe like risque or something like that. I started showing up more authentically on Instagram. I just kind of have a darker sense of humor, I would say. And once I started posting things that were more authentic to me, a lot more people started resonating and kind of like relating to that. And so that's when my following grew the most. And so maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. My videos can be very cringy, but the people who do relate to that kind of will gravitate towards you. And so the more you can be yourself, the more you show up as yourself, the more people who kind of align with you will gravitate towards you as well. So I think that is also a good thing. So last year, I think I was at 100,000 followers, and then and I've been doing it for 10 years. So it's a long time I've been doing it. I was at 100,000 followers. And then once I started posting things that actually, like I wanted to actually post, I grew, like I doubled my following. So it was pretty cool to see that. That's like, okay, so if I just show up as myself, post those 4 pillars, and people are going to start resonating with that. And then also, side note, that was the biggest year I've ever had business-wise as well. And so more people were wanting to sign up for my coaching and my training because they were relating and connecting with me as a human more. So they're like, oh, I want to learn and I want to work with that person.
Yeah. So just make sure I understand that I've got the 4 pillars right. It was inspire, entertain, educate, and pitch.
Yeah.
Is that right? Awesome. Yeah, and that's, I think, just a simple framework, right, that you can go ahead and plug and play and just say, as I look at my social media content for the month or this quarter, do I have items that fit into all 3 of these categories? And if we lean too heavy on one, so let's say that we're only ever pitching our services or we're only ever telling them that I'm in real estate, you might actually lose potential clients, right, or lose the ability to be in business with other people because they want to see you. They want to know who you are as a human, not just that you're in real estate, right? So that's where incorporating these other areas to let them know that you live, right, that you have a life and know your personality actually helps you to attract people that want to do business with you. And that goes to, I think it was a Simon Sinek saying, he says, people do business with you not just because of what you're doing, but it's the why behind why you're doing it. And so oftentimes if you just share like what's motivating you, what your goals are, what's important to you, it actually fits into this inspiration pillar, right, of helping people to see who you are as a human being. If you were to just talk about, as we're kind of in closing here, Kaytlin, one last thing I'm curious about is if you could sit across from the version of yourself who was just stepping into the gym for the first time, no clue of what was coming, what would you say to her?
Find a different career path. No, I'm just kidding. I would do it all over again if I could. But I would tell her, like, you are going to have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But just keep pushing through those low points, and I promise it will all make sense. Oh gosh, it will all make sense towards the end, and it's all going to work out. So just keep pushing through. Don't get too high on the highs. Don't get too low on the lows. Just keep showing up, putting in the work, and it'll all work out in the end.
Love it. This is where you can find Kaytlin. Obviously, Instagram as a first base. And then if you are somebody who says you want to explore a little bit with coaching, she does have an application. You only take in a certain amount of people every time because you guys do have an intense program that you run them through. Maybe just talk about quickly some of the results that you help people to achieve that are focused on their health journey.
Yeah, so we do work with athletes specifically, but also our main clientele is fat loss clients. So people who are looking to lose anywhere from like